Gentlemen, we're getting down to 10 seconds before I start the meeting, so I will call the meeting to order. Now, I want to welcome all of y'all here this evening, and this evening our invocation is going to be by George Studer. George.
Lord, you've assembled us here to consider the important matters of our city. You've given these 5 servants of yours, Charlie and Tom, Jerry and Bobby and Kathy, their positions of responsibility and accountability to make wise decisions. They're not here tonight because of the pay or the great rewards, but because their heart drew them here to serve the rest of us. So we lift them up, as well as Kent and Shelley and all the city employees too that work for a better Fredericksburg. Help them, Lord, to not lean on their own understanding, but always try to discern what's best in your eyes. And may we love you enough to listen to you and love our neighbors enough to listen and act on their behalf. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Employee recognitions, Kent.
Okay, Mayor and Council, it gives me pleasure this evening to provide the council and the public some recognitions of some of our employees. And so if you'll bear with me for just a few minutes. First off, this afternoon, we got a real nice note from Bill Snyder, who is a resident of Fredericksburg, attends our meetings on a regular basis. And I'll just read you his comments. They're pretty brief. Mr. Snyder says the residential community would like to give Ray Ortegon, our code enforcement officer, a big thank you. Residents see Ray all over town, working days, nights, and weekends. He is making a real difference and is appreciated for his efforts. Keep up the good work, Ray. Would appreciate Ray being recognized at the council meeting on August 16th. Thanks, Bill Snyder. So I don't think Ray's here, but we want to recognize Ray. And while we're on the topic of code enforcement, Mayor and Council, I also wanted to recognize the new code enforcement officer that started today for the city, Ted Boyer. Ted, if you'll stand up. Ted, yeah. Ted has recently relocated to this area. Formerly, he lived in the San Antonio area, and for the past several years, he's been city marshal and code enforcement officer for the city of Galveston. So, Ted, welcome on board. Got a couple more, Mayor.
Please do.
Hang in there.
I'm in there.
Okay. All right, the next one I've got is from Stephen Smith, who lives in New Braunfels, and this is a really great compliment to the city. Mr. Smith says, I've been flabbergasted by the level of customer service provided to me by representatives of the city of Fredericksburg. Having spent my entire career in the service industry, including several years with a cable TV provider in Fredericksburg, I was honestly expecting to have to work very hard to obtain any information regarding city services and regulations. The fact that every personal contact I have had with the city, Shelby, Shelley, and Jason, has been informative and hyper-responsive speaks favorably to the culture of excellence you have built in city management. Ms. Collier even responded to me after normal business hours, and Mr. Lutz had left his cell phone number. Who in the public sector does that? What am I saying? This level of service is rare in any sector. They have certainly not always given me the news that I wanted to hear, but they have still been a great pleasure to deal with. Certainly not what I was expecting from what must be a very busy staff at a fast-growing municipality. Well done and keep up the great work, Stephen Smith. So that was really nice.
Thank you.
The next one I got from Andrea, our Parks and Recreation Director. Is she in the back there? Okay. And this, she wanted me to share with the council and the public this evening. This was last Tuesday. She said, I was made aware by another staff member of a great save by a lifeguard at Town Pool recently. A little girl slid off the slide and then started to struggle. Before he knew it, a lifeguard was in the water and had her safely to the side. We typically have several saves like this each summer by our lifeguards, and I asked Caitlin for a list of the guards that made saves this summer. She and the guards work hard to make sure when a rescue has to be made, it is of an active drowner rather than a passive drowner, which would be much more serious. I was hoping all the guards could be mentioned on having a great summer, and the six below specifically recognized at the next council meeting. Their names that we want to recognize, and I don't know if any of them are here tonight, Andrea or Caitlin, but Garrison Bach, Harold Dagenhart, Kaylee Smedley, Tyler Smedley, Grace Truitt, and Eleni Walsh. Are any of them here this evening, Andrea? Okay, all right. Okay, that's right.
Bye-bye, lifeguards.
Yeah, they're gone. Okay, so I wanted to offer that. And one more, if I can find it here real quick. Okay, this is one I got from the, last but not least, I got a note from the police chief this morning. And the council's aware of this, but the public may not be aware. This was a recognition of our police department by the chairman of the Recognition Program Committee for an organization called the TPCAF. And TC, in case you don't know, this is the Texas Police Chiefs Association Foundation. And this note said, Dear Chief Wetz, on behalf of the Texas Police Chiefs Association Foundation, I want to officially notify you that the Fredericksburg Police Department has achieved re-recognition status for compliance with the Texas Law Enforcement Agency Best Practices Recognition Program. The Fredericksburg Police Department is to be commended for the commitment made to this process. Every employee of the agency can be proud of this accomplishment. We will be in contact with you in the near future to schedule a local public opportunity for acknowledging the department's re-recognition status in order that your citizens and community leaders can fully appreciate this accomplishment. During the annual conference, your agency will be recognized before your peers. Again, please accept my sincere congratulations on a job well done. So again, we've been re-accredited by the Texas Police Chiefs Association, and this is a real credit to Chief Wetz and all the officers of the department. So, Mayor, I think it's a great recognition. And
Good to hear good news all the time. Okay, we're going to go to public comment. We've had 15 people sign up. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll call your names in a minute. When you get down to 1 minute, you will hear this sound. Maybe you won't. And at the end, when your 3 minutes are up, you will hear the sound once again. When you come up to the podium, if you'll state your name and if you're a city resident or not. And then the first speaker will be Deborah Haubecker, and then Jerry McCormill, you'll be on deck. Deborah?
Charlie, I'm going to talk really fast because there are a lot of people
You get 3 minutes, so fast it- don't talk too fast. Talk,
right.
talk so we can understand, please. Thank
All
you.
right. Good evening, council members and guests. My name is Deborah Hobecker, and I am a resident here. I'm increasingly aware that our national government, our arrogant politicians, dishonest mass media, and big tech are censoring our voices and God-given rights. Are you seeing this? Something is very wrong in America. Some of these facts have been expressed on alternate media outlets like John F. Kennedy Channel and have called out the following. COVID came from China. The pandemic was planned. The election was stolen. America is at war. And I say this, Joe Biden is not our duly elected president, and Trump has not left us.
Deborah,
Months back, yes, sir.
would you please keep eye contact with me?
Oh, yes, sir.
If you
Yes, sir.
don't mind, because when you
Oh,
turn,
okay.
sometimes I think, well, she doesn't want me to hear what you're saying.
Sorry about that.
And that's quite all right.
Months back, a chemist from our community spoke at our city council meeting. He was articulate and spoke about the mask mandate and the FDA unapproved experimental COVID vaccines. His words were powerful. He said it will change your DNA. Do your own research. Thank you to this gentleman for his courage and truth-seeking. He convinced me, so I began to study and read. I discovered the evidence is overwhelming. Masks are ineffective. Experimental vaccines are toxic. The CDC and the NIH are lying to us. And good people are dying by the thousands, perhaps even in the 100,000s around the world. Prominent doctors, urologists, scientists like Luc Mogonet, the discoverer of HIV, Dr. Mikovich, Dr. Lee, Dr. Tenpenny, Dr. Fleming, Dr. Northrup, and Dr. Gold, and her thousands of doctors and American frontline doctors, just to name a few, have tried to communicate the evidence, yet big tech silences our words. 2 months ago, I invited our county, city government, law enforcement, county judge, and sheriff and school board to a program in Burnett County put on by the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association. All county sheriffs around the Hill Country were in attendance. These sheriffs are in the know and see what is coming down. Sheriff Mack, the founder, the national patriot of the CSPOA, has been fighting tirelessly since 1994 for law enforcement average American citizens to preserve our freedoms. He fought the Clinton administration and won a landmark victory in the Supreme Court for states' rights. Houston, we have a problem. You, as our local leaders in law enforcement, must ensure our constitutional rights are preserved. We, the people who elected you, recognize mask mandates are unlawful. Experimental vaccines are dangerous and killing us. Do your research. Eventually, those pushing the agenda will be held accountable. Keep Fredericksburg open and free, protect our freedoms and your freedoms, and acknowledge all businesses are essential.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jerry, you're next, and then we have John Rodriguez. You're on deck. Again, Jerry, give us your name and if you're a city resident.
Before I start, I just want to thank you for the rearrangement here, moving the podium from there over to here, because now we can see who's on our city council up here. Thank you for that. I'm Jerry McCorkle, and I've lived in Fredericksburg for 20 years. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. At the last city council meeting, there were several people who spoke on the COVID dilemma, which prompted me to speak tonight. The handout which I gave out before I started here is the basis for my concern. The biased newspapers, TV, motion picture industry, and social medias are all moving us down the road to socialism. I ask that you read over my handout entitled 45 Communist Takeover Goals that was submitted in 1963 to the Congressional Record. How many of those goals have already been reached? Read it and make your own decisions. We are being led like sheep down the road of fear. We are being forced to take COVID vaccines that haven't even been approved by the FDA. The number of COVID cases and proclaimed and the number of survivors is downplayed. And I would like to read from the COVID report, which is put out by the CDC. it says here that there were 37,365,716 cases reported. There were 637,170 deaths, but there were 30,130,093 people that recovered from the COVID virus. There's little or lack of numbers about the murders of innocent babies, and that's all about abortion, which I'm also very concerned with. Off of the report again from CDC, the total number of abortions in the U.S. from 1973 to 2018 was 61.8 million. That's 186 abortions per 1,000 live births. And the U.S. abortions in 2017 was 862,320, and that's per day of 2,362. The other thing I'd like to address there is the fact that we are now being pushed to have the CRT in our schools and major businesses. American Express put out a memo the other day that says it subjects its employees to a series of critical race theory training called Equity, sessions that encourage staff to rank themselves on a hierarchy of privilege and apply that hierarchy in the workplace with more privileged employees deferring to staff from marginal groups. That doesn't go with me in the Constitution either. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to turn back to God and our Constitution before it's too late. God says in his book in 2 Chronicles 7:14, he says it all, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sins and heal their nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, John Rodriguez, and then Delbert, I believe it's Arns, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You're on deck. Yeah, if you'll say your name and if you're not a resident or not.
My name is John Rodriguez, and I'm not a newcomer here. I was born and raised in this town. In 2018, I came to ask the City Council to make their consideration for a future transition from its current power supplier to the use of renewable energy. At the time, there were only a handful of Texas cities that made the transition, Georgetown and Denton, Texas. Also, as was reported at the time, the City of New Braunfels Utilities had put out a request asking renewable energy power producers for proposals in supplying solar power, as well as Greenville, Bryan, Kerrville, and Garland. Not long after that, the City of Fredericksburg approved a resolution establishing the tax-based program. This was a great first step in the use of more renewable energy by new businesses within the city, to include the use of solar panels, wind power, and more efficient water management. This was a wise step by this city. The cities like Georgetown that have adopted solar and wind power changed because of the economic benefits, as well as using sustainable energy, and it made good financial sense. Their contracts locked in cheaper rates than that offered by LCRA at the time, and would protect the city from price spikes from fossil fuels due to changing markets, both foreign and domestic. Renewable energy is all around us now. Now that more Texas cities and smaller communities are leaning toward and or adopting an energy source that Texas has an abundance of, wind and sun. And not only for economic reasons, but for environmental, and more people than ever are concerned about climate change, as we are witnessing its consequences throughout this country. With your approval, I would like to go into greater detail to make you aware of new developments throughout Texas in a future city council meeting, as I need a little more time, of what I believe would be the next step by the city to take. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. Delbert, and then Mary Marshall, you're on deck.
My name's Delbert Irons. I'm a resident of Fredericksburg since 2006. I married a woman that was living here, Rita Nidai. I spent 23 years in the military, enlisted, 3 in the Army and 20 in the Navy. I didn't fight to see communism come in or socialism. I've been in countries that were socialist and they're pigsties. And the poor people are really poor, and the rich people are really rich, and they don't get along. Venezuela ought to show you that. I don't believe we need socialism in this country. Also, this talk about lockdown again, that's really dumb. If you lock down, you're stepping on people's liberties and people's way of life. My wife has a business here. If you lock down, you're not going to get taxes. That's going to hurt you. And then you'll have to raise taxes, and that'll hurt her if she's still able to go. If you lock down, there's a lot of small businesses that are not going to make it because they need the income to exist. I want to close with the fact that I enjoy this city. I have been pretty much around the world and have, as I said, been in a lot of different countries. I spent 20 years on an aircraft carrier and enjoyed life in the military. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, and then Tom, you're on deck after Mary.
I'm Mary Lee Marshall. I live in town. I am here tonight to give you an update on someone I talked about about a month ago. By the way, his name is Bill Smallwood. I know some of you know him. He still has not had his blood work done. He had a heart attack a year or so ago, and he has also only one kidney. He should be getting heart stress tests done. That hasn't happened either because he can't wear a mask. They won't let him in the door. How many of you would be upset if you had a history of heart problems and couldn't get a heart stress test? That might cause you some stress, I'm guessing. I'm sure if he has another heart attack, every one of you will be front and center at his door offering apologies and trying to help. Right? Bill is not the only one. Other stories are surfacing. In contrast, in 2019 at Christmas, I had COVID before it was fashionable. The staff at this hospital bent over backwards to help me 3 times in 1 week in the ER. They were very compassionate. Now we have entered an era of medical tyranny where they are more interested in making patients jump through bureaucratic hoops than they are in patient care. No wonder they're short-staffed. It's probably a pretty depressing place to work for somebody that is interested in patient care.
Thank you, Mary. Tom Marshall, and then Kimberly Ames, you're on deck.
My name's Tom Marshall. I'm a resident of Fredericksburg. I'm here tonight, not just for myself, but for a number of people. I'm here to ask you to add a resolution to the future agenda for the council. If you have not read the proposed resolution that I emailed to you, Mayor Keeney has a hard copy. The first part of the resolution lists the background and reasons for the resolution. However, what is not listed in the resolution are the many reasons for passing this resolution sitting behind me here tonight. To be clear, the intent of the resolution is this. We, the people of Fredericksburg, want our local government to acknowledge and protect the individual rights as outlined in our U.S. and state constitutions. Now, no doubt you'll take this resolution to the Texas Municipal League and ask their opinion. Will they tell you this is a bad idea? Maybe even say it is a dangerous idea. Now imagine going back 180 years to the Alamo and telling those 180 men that what they were doing was a bad idea. Imagine going back 160 years and telling those 40 men who wanted to remain true to the Union that what they were doing was a bad idea. Imagine going back 80 years to the deck of the USS Arizona and telling my cousin, Martin Bruns, as he was carrying wounded sailors to safety, that joining the Navy was a bad idea. So is this a bad idea or even a dangerous one? This resolution ought to remind you, our public servants and all government officials, that the ultimate power in this state and nation rests with we, the people. Is it a bad idea to remind elected officials that it is to the constitutions of this nation and state that they and you swore an oath of fidelity to protect and defend, not to the hospital staff, legal advisory teams, or other government entities that do not support those same constitutions? No, it is not only a good idea, it is our right and our duty to speak out and remind you. When this comes up, the resolution comes up, please pass it. May I see a show of hands of how many people support that resolution?
Okay, I was going to ask the same question.
Thank you.
All right. Kimberly, you're up. Court Swisher, you're on deck. Name and if you're a city resident, Kimberly, for the record.
Hello, my name is Kimberly. I am a city resident. The main priority tonight, of course, is to, accentuate again that all businesses are essential. We are all essential. We all have a right to work. We all have a right to open a business. We all have a right to stay open. If we think it's an emergency for us to shut our businesses down, we'll make that determination, not the government. That's just what this is about at the end of the day. And then the second part of tonight, which I'm sure you guys know that I want to pass some things out to you, and I've got quite a packet for you tonight, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and stop the clock.
Sure.
Okay, restart.
Thank you. First, I'd like to begin with a quote. Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. Ephesians 5:11. So I'm going to review for the public the packet that I've given to our city council today. The first page is a couple of news stories about how the CDC has advised that pregnant women should take this vaccine. Interesting. I'd like all of you to know that the VAERS data, which is a CDC and FDA data place, have reported 1,381 miscarriages. So this authority of trust is not trustworthy, especially if you're pro-life, or do these 1,381 lives just not matter? And before I continue, I'd like to give a special recognition to our comrade of the day that began this meeting without a mask and is currently wearing one because she knows that she is on video camera from multiple people in this room. Of course. Don't worry, we spotted you. I just want that on the record. Here we go. Here's another nice piece of propaganda. Forbes, you must not do your own research when it comes to science. And then we've got the definition of what science actually is. We've got the definition of brainwashing, and I've given them this document here, a speech of Joe Biden.
If you, because I'm hearing, the louder you talk, it is, believe it or not, harder for me to understand. Thank you.
Sure. We've got a speech from our so-called President Biden here where he talks for 8 minutes and 34 seconds and mentions the word vaccine 91 times. Yep. That's so not brainwashing though, right? We've got the definition of cult with our St. Fauci here. And we've got the booster shots likely. How many government shots are you willing to take? And I've also helpfully given them their informed consent document that they were given when they took the shot, and I have highlighted all of the concerning information for them so that they can direct their attention where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay. Ford Swisher and then Rebecca Duries. Am I saying that somewhat close? Court, you're up. Name and if you're a city citizen or not. Oh, it's Davis.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Cord Switzer. I spell slowly for you, Mr. Charlie. C-O-R-D.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Short and sweet name.
Most of you have heard me speak about the concept of free enterprise and the lack thereof that exists for the most part in our society today. We have multiple layers of government. I repeat, multiple layers of government edicting on what we can and cannot do on a regular basis. At the winery here at the Fredericksburg Winery, we have a federal winery permit, a state winery permit, a city winery permit, and county winery permit. We're registered with the FDA. We have the state health department, city health department, and county health department. Heck, we're even registered with Homeland Security. Government regulations are fine if they're necessary, clear, constant, and effective. So far, the misinformation and the change of mind every time we turn around, as far as things are concerned lately, is not only confusing, it's abusive. We never know what's coming next. There's no consistency in what's happening. CDC guidelines, if you believe in those, then unfortunately the hospital doesn't in this town. And I will give you a prime example because on May 9th, Sunday evening at my house, I was opening a bottle of wine, the first one, and the neck broke and cut a major gap in my hand. I have never been to the emergency room for myself. I've carried other people there, but I had blood squirting across and I could not stop it. So after grabbing several napkins, paper towels, I went to the hospital emergency room. I was told I had to wear a mask. When I produced my note from my doctor that said for medical reasons I am not required to wear one, they would not honor it. This hospital would not honor CDC guidelines. What a novel concept. So I was escorted out by the supervisor. And when I asked, because I'm sitting here with my hand like this with paper towels that are literally dripping blood, when I asked, are you refusing me medical attention? The supervisor said, no, we're just telling you if you want medical attention, you got to wear a mask. So I exited, went to the H-E-B store, bought lots of gauze, tape, etc., taped myself up very carefully and very secure based upon experiences in Nam, put a sling on and sat up all night napping when I could. Then the next morning I went to my doctor and got it taken care of. Okay. Folks, guidelines are guidelines. We need to stand up and say, we, the city of Fredericksburg, have set an agenda where we are not going to tolerate change every time we turn around.
Thank you, Court. Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca, is that Davis? Okay, thank you. And then Jim Richmond, you're on deck. Again, name and if you're a city resident for the record.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Davis, and I am a Fredericksburg resident, but I'm not here for myself today. I'm here on behalf of my sister, who owns a piece of property and has for almost 30 years on West San Antonio. This is under the subject of the short-term rental proposal. It's number C on the last page of tonight's agenda. This proposition proposes for multi-structure accommodations to be built across the street from my sister. In the time that she's owned this property, every single one, except for 2 homes around her, encircle her, are short-term rentals. The impact in the neighborhood, and especially at her house, is great. I talked to her after the city planning and zoning meeting where I spoke, and she said, just go tell them, just describe to them what we've been through for 30 years. The congestion, the cars that park in my driveway, the cars that park on the grass, the cars that block my driveway, the kinds of behaviors that number of people just attract, primarily, of course, on the weekends. Tell them about the people who come and peer in the windows of my house, who walk in the backyard. It's just asking for more trouble to ask for more people to come and stay in the area. It's just a very negative impact on a residential area that was meant to be a place where people come and live. She also asked me to make a very distinct recognition that there is a difference between homeowners and property owners. This has been a real change in the neighborhood, and she has put a lot of an investment of time and money to maintain the integrity of her home so that that historical district does not become a hotel district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Jim Richmond, and then Heather Davis is on deck.
I'm Jim Richmond. I reside at 563 West San Antonio, and I follow the same comments, concerns about the building next door, the plans to build actually 3 units according to the plans I got, but according to the city letter, it said 1 unit. They said they would have 5 parking places. They already have 5 parking places there, and frequently there are 3 and 4 cars there already. The unit that is there currently is a double unit. They want to put 3 more in it, and I find that to be a problem because of traffic. Even today, there was a truck there. They were saying for the week that's allowed that whenever he starts his engine and runs out, everybody in the neighborhood has to hear it. I'm willing to obviously accept that, but to have 3 more units added to the 2 there seem to be excessive. I've also heard that the owner feels that all we have, pardon me, all we have in the area are B&Bs. No, that's not the case. The previous owner spoke. I'm right next door. I've owned that house for 20 years. That has never been a B&B. The house across the street has never been a B&B on the other side of us, and the one on the other corner, the owner lived on property. So what I want to do is voice my concern about additional B&Bs, additional units at the particular address. I don't recall the address. I think it's 514 West San Antonio, and I live at 516. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Heather, you're up, and then Tanya Benson's on deck.
Hello, I'm Heather Davis. I'm owner and operator of Bluebird Beginnings Learning Center. I didn't come with agenda, so I've been in business for almost 6 years for the city of Fredericksburg. I rent from a person who gave me an ultimatum. I service 54 families in this town. 54. Some of you, I have your children, I've had your grandchildren. I'm being pushed out. I have nowhere to go because of B&Bs, because of buildings that are overpriced, $925,000. I'm a sole proprietor, the only sole proprietor in this town. I'm not backed up by a church, a school. I do it on my own. I've done it on my own. I started with $3,000 in my pocket, and I got it, everything I got. I live in Harper. I drive 20 miles a day. I have 4 children who I've homeschooled, and I brought my daughter because, well, Harper doesn't start till Wednesday. My other son just now started Fredericksburg ISD, which we've never done Fredericksburg ISD. But I'm asking you to help me support our community. I'm very short-staffed. I can't find people. I've spent thousands of dollars advertising, from the newspaper to the radio stations to social media. Nobody's knocking. So another thing I'd like to mention is if you do close the city down, it's going to be very difficult because I was the only daycare in this entire town open the entire pandemic. I struggled. I got COVID. I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanya Benson, and then Jeanette Harmuth, you're on deck.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, my name is Tanya Benson. Thank you for listening tonight. I have 2 comments I'd like to make.
Tanya, are you a city resident?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
I have 2 comments I'd like to make tonight. The first one is regarding the town pool. I'd like to express my support of option 2. There's a lot of history with the town pool. Some of you on the council know that. And the last time the council tried to make decisions about the swimming pool, the voters got involved and they voted for the town pool. I don't think that you should take it away from them without letting them vote again. The Rotary wants to do the splash pad. That sounds like a good idea. But whatever you do, you must get input from the voters. You can't just take that pool away because it would be disingenuous after you had them vote for it. My second topic is I'd like to make an observation concerning this resolution being brought before the council. I would ask, why do you think people are bringing this resolution to the council? Well, not once in the past year and a half have any of you, either before or after the election, made public statements to assure us that you are not going to infringe on our God-given, natural, unalienable rights as codified in the state constitution and the Bill of Rights, and the Texas Constitution and the Declaration of Rights. Why is that? Recently, there was an opportunity for elected officials to attend a conference on the ethics of the oath of office. Every surrounding county and almost every county surrounding that had representation from elected officials, but not one elected official from Fredericksburg could find a way to make it there. So, so why is there so much resistance from you all to let us know without any doubt that you're going to keep your oath of office, that you know what the purpose of government is, which is to protect our rights? Why is that so hard for you to let us know? That's why you have a resolution coming to you, because we don't know what you're going to do this next round. If they decide to lock down, close businesses, shut our churches down, keep us from assembling publicly, what are you going to do next time?
Thank you. Hey, Jeanette, you're up. Jeanette, thank you.
Yes, good evening. My name is Jeanette Hormuth. I live in Fredericksburg. I just wanted to echo what many people have said. Proposed resolution has been presented, and we formally request that the City Council will place this on the agenda at the nearest possible meeting coming up. I've had the opportunity to go out and speak to a lot of the businesses all over town, as have others. And I have to say that it was an incredible experience for me. It gave me a lot of hope, for one thing. I found our business owners are awesome. They all really understand the Constitution. They understand that a lot of what happened this past year was infringing on the rights that they are entitled to, that are enshrined in our Constitution and which God has given to us. And it's caused a lot of heartache and a lot of problems. They have been through incredible, we'll say that these different edicts and so-called mandates encouraged a lot of division. The people that honored the Constitution and didn't want to shut down or didn't go with, again, a governor cannot make a law. The mayor cannot make a law. The health department cannot make a law. Laws are made by the legislature. So these mandates, the mask mandates, the occupancy, this person can be open, that person can't. The problem is that it's caused other people that are busybodies to then start being mean to the people that aren't, it's disheartening what this has caused. I hear from other businesses that are having a lot of trouble right now because now they can't get their supplies or they don't know when they're coming because of now all this stuff that's been happening worldwide with this crazy disaster that we've created. Not we, but the powers that be. And so they can't know how many employees to have or be ready for when the supplies come because they come instead of every 2 weeks or whatever it is. It could be a month and a half, so they can't have people lying around. Other employers are worried that they don't know whether to hire more people because of the uncertainty that are we going to shut down? Are we going to start putting all these other mandates again? So we're just asking you to honor your oath of office, which number one is to uphold the Constitution and the rights that everyone has that do not go away during an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. I hope to pronounce this somewhat right. Isla? Okay, and what's the last name? Ruth, okay, thank you. And your name for the record when you get here, and then Robert Phoenix, you're on deck.
Anyway, I want to I lived in Fredericksburg for about 12 years now. I originally came here to take care of a sick man from Fredericksburg, so I'm not originally from here. My comments need a little preface. They have to do with law enforcement, and I must say that I think the law enforcement in this community does not do a good job, police nor the sheriff at all. And I believe that many residents agree with me and would be very happy to give testimony regarding that. My background, I'm retired. I am a criminal justice administrator, also a forensic psychologist, dual degrees. I spent 20 years working in justice. I've trained police officers in working with domestic violence and the mentally ill and working with children who witness serious crimes. I worked for the district attorney's office, probation, and mostly been a right-hand person for criminal court judges doing adult adjudication for many, many years. So I find that the jail is run very poorly. The police department is ignorant of the law and therefore infringes upon people's rights and harasses them. And I'm going to speak of my personal experience and that of a few of my friends. I was yanked out of my home in my nightgown by the sheriff's department, taken to jail, tied down, had my ribs broken, and had my private part exposed by jailers. So I think that if this council wants to give accolades to the police department, they're very misplaced. The reason for this was strictly political. I had violence directed against me by a man in this town who is politically connected. Therefore, when I went to the police, I was told that I was deceitful and dishonest and that they would not help me. I therefore went to the county attorney.
Isla, again, if you wouldn't speak so loud, because when you're real loud, it's hard.
I then went to the county attorney, and I was basically stonewalled again. I then went to the district attorney in Kerr, who also oversees this county, and I was stonewalled again. I'm going to work with the Texas Rangers because this town needs to get cleaned up in a big way. I have another woman who will give testimony who is now 83 years old, who is also taken out of her home in her nightgown by the police department and held at the jail at the age of 80. No charges. So there are many, many problems with law enforcement here, many. And if you all don't start drawing attention to it, then other people will, and you're going to have a frenzy in this town. That's what's going to happen.
Thank you. Robert, your number. You're the last Mohican, Robert.
That's racist.
Okay, you're the last moccasin.
Well, normally I wing it, but tonight I want to make my words cogent and count because I think we're in a time where words really do count. First off, let me say that I'm a little disappointed, more than a little disappointed by the actions of the council to not allow public comments on agenda items. I did appreciate the more transparent process that took place when it was discussed that public comments could be moved to the end of the meeting. We're all part of that process, and I appreciate Mayor Keeney's leadership role during that meaningful debate about public comments. So I was taken aback, a little more than taken aback, and surprised by simply eliminating any public comment on agenda items and forcing them to be squeezed into the public comments section and allotting an individual only 3 minutes to speak on one chosen topic. It seems to have deflated some of the earnest support from the previous decision or previous discussion. If you haven't noticed, the social contract has been broken. People are living with a vague sense of unease and mistrust about the political system in general. I'm not going to go into the gory details, but you'd have to be under the influence of powerful psychotropics to not understand what's happened in the world and to our country over the last year. You as our elected officials are what separates us in many ways from the ensuing chaos. We're very fortunate to live in this area. That said, we as a community must come together and remain steadfast in the face of pressure from external sources that will tell you that people who mistrust the vaccine and the current medical dictum are terrorists. For you, Jerry, based on what you shared about your son and your brother, they could fall into that category. In a time where families and communities are being torn asunder by this issue, I'm imploring that each and every one of you, no matter what your political persuasion, party alliance, you have to firmly understand what we are going through and where this can possibly head. I see two choices in the future. One is to agree upon the fact that this town can self-determine and support businesses and schools to remain open and essential, and support the resolution that Tom Marshall brought to the council tonight. The other is about fear and mandates, not laws, but mandates that in many cases come from unelected officials. The former requires diligence, backbone, and leadership. The latter is the path of least resistance and reeks of going along with the program, usually incentivized by money to make it all go down easier. I hope that when the time comes, you as a council will stand up for what's right. If you do, you have my and many others' unconditional support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for all your comments this evening. We'll move on to number 6, the consent agenda item. The following items may be acted upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action on any of these items will be held unless pulled at the request of a member of the city council. To start with, we did get the corrected minutes. Did everybody receive those? Okay. Consider the approval of city council minutes. I, August the 2nd, 2021 workshop. Double I, August the 2nd, 2021 regular meeting, and triple I, August the 4th, 2021 workshop. B, consider approval request from the Best Fest to close one southbound traffic lane and parking lane adjacent to Mark Plots on North Adams and from Austin to Maine beginning Friday, October the 15th, 2021 at 8 a.m. until Sunday, October 17th, 2021 at noon. Is there any one of these items that need pull? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Is Jennifer Krupa here tonight to answer any questions about the Best Fest?
Jennifer? Okay.
Andrea's here.
Can we we have a discussion of Best Fest?
Well, let's approve A and then we'll go to B. So
I move that we approve the
Consent items, A.
the city council minutes in A and with the corrections that have been made.
I have a motion by Tom on that one, second by Jerry. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor of approving consent agenda item A? Aye. Okay. Tom Usma has asked us to pull B, so Andrea, questions?
So my question on the Best Fest is, have they submitted a health and safety plan?
Yes, it's been submitted.
Okay. And it's ready to, it's been approved by.
Yeah, Matt, he hasn't gone through yet? Oh, no, I'm sorry, it hasn't gone through yet.
Hasn't gone through yet?
No, they'll have a special events committee meeting within 60 days of the event. We haven't scheduled one yet. Okay. But typically these come to council before that.
Okay, all right, that's fine, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay.
I move we approve the request from Best Fest.
Second.
Motion by Tom, second by Jerry. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to 7A, hold a public hearing to receive citizens' comments for or against a request by Steve and Marshall Mengel to consider a conditional use permit, a CUP, per section 3.510 to construct a first floor bed and breakfast unit in the historic shopping overlay district on property located at 211 West Austin, Z2113. I'll entertain a motion to go out of regular.
I move we go out of regular session and public hearing.
Have a motion by Jerry.
Second.
Second by Kathy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any folks out there would like to speak to this? There being none,
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
have a motion by Jerry, a second by Bobby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to 7B. hold a public hearing to receive citizen comments for or against a request by West and Tammy Pack to consider a public use permit CUP per section 3.510 to construct a first floor bed and breakfast unit in the shopping historical overlay district on the property located at 514 West San Antonio Street, Z2114. A motion go from regular back.
I'll move we go from regular session and the public hearing.
Second. Motion by Jerry, second by Tom.
Could I request the city secretary to note that Rebecca Davis and Jim Retchwoodman both spoke on this item, even though it was a public hearing. If we could move the note in the minutes during this. Yep.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Anyone here would like to speak to this?
What was that?
There being none, I'll entertain a motion to close
I
public.
move we go out of public hearing back into regular.
Second.
We have a motion by Jerry and a second by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're going to move on then to item 8B. Consider an approval of a request by Stephen Marshall Mengel to consider a conditional use permit CUP for section 3.510 to construct a first floor bed and breakfast in the breakfast unit in the historic shopping overlay on property located at 211 West Austin Street, Z2113. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Let me pull this one up. So we're looking at a conditional use permit. This property is located on Washington Street. It does have a side alley access off of Orange Street. This is in the historic shopping district. So anytime we see a conditional use permit in this area, that is ultimately the reason for that is because since it is a historic shopping district, we want to kind of reserve. I'm sorry.
Is it on Austin Street?
I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. Sorry. What did I say?
Washington and Orange or
Apologize for
something.
that.
Yeah.
Are you testing us to see we're listening?
I was. Good
Okay,
job.
well, we were.
You all
Thank you.
passed. And so the reason for the CUP is because generally the historic shopping district, the goal is to maintain those areas and land availability for shopping or commercial uses. Given its location, staff can't support this recommended use. If you look, the applicant is looking at doing multiple bed and breakfast. This would be 8 units. In addition to the main office, there is also a living quarter in the back here. Charlie, if you can see that on the screen. This is the owner's cab residence here. There'll be 8 units. There's an office and kitchen up at the front. This property was reviewed by the Historic Review Board for the site plan and the elevations. If you notice, these buildings at the front were pushed back from the front building. That was to allow some more visual, so not to visually obstruct the historic Bergewell house next door. Other than that, the only concerns that came up during the planning and zoning recommendation was that of concerns by the neighbors along this western side, including privacy and noise. You'll see on this image here, I have 4 sections of privacy fence highlighted in red. These are the only sections of privacy fence along the side property lines. During the recommendation portion or public hearing, the discussion was should this 6-foot fence be increased to 8 just to allow some additional sound barrier. There's no other fence proposed as the structures themselves, which have no openings on those exterior sides. The wall will follow as a wall as well. So based on the HRB review, P&Z recommendation, staff recommends approval of this with the conditions that P&Z made regarding the fence height. So the applicant is available, an architect, to answer any questions, and I can answer any if you have any.
Now, are those apartments right on the property line?
They're about 3 feet from the property line.
Is that what's required? I thought
CBD has a zero property line setback, so you could actually go right on the property line. Ultimately, the fire code will dictate how far back that building goes, depending on the construction type of the structure itself.
Is there going to be enough room for a drive or?
Drive's actually going to access off of the alley here. I can show you on this survey here. Give me 1 second to pull that one up.
Kind of back there where West End Pizza had their parking in that.
Yes, they will actually come off of Orange Street. There's a 20-foot wide alley, and then they will access the proposed parking. You'll see that's in the rear on the site plan. Fire marshal did review this, and they said they can provide fire access there.
It's pretty big.
Yes, the minimum fire lane is 20 feet currently. Now, if these structures were over 30 feet in height, that would push that fire lane requirement to 26 feet. But because they're all one story, the 20-foot fire lane is the minimum that's allowed.
Jason, I have a question on the fence between the two pieces of property. Is it going to be a continuous 8-foot fence?
Yes, that was the proposal. It's not continuous, like I said, it's just between these highlighted red sections. I put those on the screen here. The wall of the building is being proposed as the fence itself. There was some discussion about putting a new fence on the property line. I think the applicant was a little bit hesitant because it does leave only 3 foot between that building and that property line, but the applicant can speak to that.
So there are no windows on?
No windows or openings on either of those exterior walls that face the adjacent properties to the east and to the west.
Jason, what's the occupancy of each of those?
These are 1-bedroom efficiency units, so there'll be occupancy will be 2 per.
Just out of curiosity, are they going to have will they be serving food, preparing food and serving?
They do have a kitchen that's going to be part of the office, so they will have a commercial kitchen be inspected. The layout and approval of that will go through the health department for review and approval.
So, Jason, I'd like to looking at the fence, I guess that would be toward Main Street is go down. So the third big building down on the lower left-hand side of right there.
This one here?
Right. Okay. So how about the fence? I guess that the circle designates a tree.
Yeah.
Is there a fence that goes all the way down to the parking lot?
No.
Or is that open?
No, this is all open. This line here, right on my cursor, is the property line. So there again, there's no fence being proposed in this location at this time.
Got a hot tub?
No, sir.
What is the capacity of the main home? Do they rent that out as well?
No, this will be the manager's quarters. So
What
they will have it
about,
on.
what's the big one in the middle up there at the top?
This one here, this is the kitchen and office, and then this large portion here is actually a covered patio to the exterior.
The only concern I have is the separation of the property from the property to the west.
That's a 3-foot separation there.
Yeah, and but it's there's no fence that's going down, going toward Main Street at that end. So how does that separate the properties? It doesn't really, does it?
No, sir.
And is the property owner to the west agreeable to that?
The property owner did protest the requested CUP. They did not make a mention of the fence in this area. Their general concerns are over the short-term rental use itself and the possibility of noise and generating in that area. Ultimately, when staff looked at this, that was something we always consider, but given that this is a CBD zoning district, theoretically, the land use chart would allow a bar or nightclub to be built there as well, so we felt that this was probably less intense use than what could be done by right. There was no mention of that fence extension there. P&Z only recommendation was the proposed.
Thank you.
Any other further questions? You guys asked all the questions I wanted to ask. Thank you. Anybody would like to make a motion on this one?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the CUP with the condition that the fence height be increased from 6 foot to 8 foot.
Can I have a motion by Tom? Can I hear a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We move on to 8C. Consider an approval of a request by West and Tammy Pack to consider a conditional use permit CUP section 3.510 to construct a first floor bed and breakfast in the breakfast unit in the historic shopping district overlay on property located at 514 West San Antonio Street, Z2114. Jason?
Yes, thank you again, Mayor, Council. This property is actually located on San Antonio Street at 514. It is the second home from the west. Let me pull up the proposed zoning map or the current zoning map. So here's a property. There are actually two neighbors to the left. There's two lots there. One of those did recently submit a request for a B&B permit. That is going through the approval process now. One on the other side, where my cursor is, that one was also approved as a new short-term rental as well. So a lot of transition in the area when we look at the existing land uses and proposed land uses. I'll try and zoom in on this image a little bit so y'all can see it clearly. The request is to propose 3 additional units in the back. These are one-story efficiencies, or approximately 600 square feet in area in each. Behind each area is a spa, pool / hot tub area. You'll see them here. The original proposal for this property had these houses kind of twisted to where the pools were facing the adjacent neighbors to the west. After talking to the design team on behalf of the applicant, staff had suggested rotating those. They were able to accommodate those. We believe that gives a little bit more privacy from those hot tubs to the adjacent areas by utilizing the structure themselves as a buffer. And then to the north of the property, this backs up to a commercial zoning district that has frontage on Main Street. So there was not much concern as far as the hot tubs there, being that there could be a restaurant, bar, any other type of use that the commercial zoning district would allow. The other big concern that staff has on the proposal has to do with the parking itself. You'll see there were 3 parallel parking spaces proposed on this western side with a handicap space and a regular space here. Staff had originally proposed that maybe some of these accessory structures and fire pit go away, and that could provide additional ample parking to serve the site. I believe the applicant had some pushback on that just because these are new structures, new construction on the cabana area and the fire pit. They did relocate one of the parkings from that west side. This does provide a little bit more turning movement, so the properties won't have to back all the way out onto West San Antonio. It functions almost as a mini hammerhead. Now, Charlie, your truck may not be able to make that turn, but there are some vehicles that could. So again, looking at this is an R2 zoning district. It does meet all the densities. Staff did support the recommended approval with the updated site plan. And then when P&Z considered this, they made a couple of recommendations. One was that a privacy fence be constructed along the perimeter, and that was all 3 sides, so the west, the north, and the east, and that would be done by the applicant. And that the other condition they had was that the limit on the occupancy for those 3 units be limited to 2. Under the current STR ordinances, theoretically at 600 feet, you would be allowed to sleep 3 guests. So right now, their recommendation was for 2 max. Again, there are 2 units in the existing home, 2 separate rental units that you can book separately. So again, staff does recommend approval with those conditions that P&Z recommended and any council may have at this time.
Question, how many people does the main house sleep?
The main house at 1,729 square feet, they can sleep 1 individual for every 200 square feet. So 5, 4, about 8 to 9.
8 to 9. And where do those people park?
Somewhere.
Wherever they can. I don't know if that's the correct answer, but depending on how many people come, I mean, theoretically, that's 9 parking space people, or theoretically, that's 2, and everybody carpools.
How many bedrooms in that front building?
I believe there are 2 2-bedroom units, 4.
4 bedrooms?
I believe so, yes, ma'am. I've not seen the floor plan of the interior of that house.
Where are the people that are in the main house parking now?
On the site, this gravel area is kind of existing, and they're parking in that area now.
So that they will be parking there too. So and how many parking spaces are they required for the 3 new units?
For the 3 new units, they would be required 3 spaces. For the 2 units in the existing home, they would be required 2. So a total of 5 spaces under our current zoning ordinance.
Do you have that there now?
There are 5 spaces, yes, although one of them is technically a handicap, so. So if you have 5 visitors that don't, 5 vehicles and one of them's not handicapped, then that parking space would not be utilized theoretically.
How much road frontage is on Austin Street for parking in front of this property?
Not much.
I believe it's about 84 feet. You're looking at a 20-foot driveway, so 60 feet. Your standard parallel space is going to be 22 feet, so you could theoretically get 3 cars there max, 2 large trucks. If someone parked in front of the driveway, say that it was rented to all of the same property, they could squeeze in another one there and they'd play the moving game. But, I think that is a good example of what we see in kind of the disconnect between our short-term rental ordinance and some of our parking regulations that we see currently required.
I like the way the hot tubs have been presented, but I'm real concerned about parking. Not only for the individuals that come to this facility, but for the neighbors that are still around there. So my recommendation would be to go back to the drawing board. And it appears above, did you say that was a fire pit that they had just constructed there?
So this area here is a fire pit. So that is just a seating area, but I do know it is new construction, so there was a financial impact.
Sure. What about above that space up in there?
This area here is an existing cabana. I believe it's a sitting area, open on 4 sides. There is a front porch there, and then there is an old shed. I believe talking to the design architect on this, I believe he called that a Frankenstein, to use your words, sir. It's a kind of cobbled together accessory structure. It's not historic. It's actually remnants of probably 2 to 3 structures there.
Could you put another parking space there?
If this structure and these 2 were to be removed, depending on what happens under the tree, I think there's some ability to get some additional parking in there. I mean, I'm not a design expert, but, looking at the spaces, you could possibly get 2 to 3 vehicles, singularly stacked here and 2 to 3 singularly stacked there. I think there's options there, but that would require the demolition of some of those new structures, so.
Was that thing always a B&B? I'm sorry.
It has been for quite a while.
Yes, the existing structure, we're showing permits going back, I believe, 2018, 2019 timeframe.
What about the space above the fire pit? All I see is what looks like tree lines to me.
Yeah, so this, right where the point of my cursor is, that is the center of a large tree. So what you're seeing here is generally the canopy and critical root zone of that area. I don't know if this symbol is to scale as far as critical root zones, or if it's just merely visual. So I'd have to lean on the applicant on that.
Okay. Is Eric, go ahead, Randy. Shed some light on us.
Thank you very much. This is a tough one. To squeeze in more spaces, ultimately what's going to happen is, yes, we could give, even if the applicant was willing to give up some of these outdoor amenities, which is what visitors like to use, to gain that area for parking, you're going to end up losing others. Because you have to have space to pull out, backup space or lane space. So even if we could take these spaces and turn them 90 degrees and head in towards the east, ultimately you'd still have to have the backup space to get back out. So there's really not much opportunity to gain more spaces there. Even if we give up some of those amenities, it doesn't afford us an opportunity to add more spaces in there.
Talk to me about where they're not.
I'm sorry?
Where the tree is, where the cursor is there. Why couldn't you put something up in that area along the property line, parallel parking?
Well, we could, but you'd have to create a driveway to get there and to create a driveway.
I see a sidewalk space.
Right. Those are pretty substantial trees too. These are not small trees. These are like heritage scale trees.
What kind of tree?
Most of them are pecan trees, and they're very large trees. To give those up would be a pretty detrimental thing to the site. Again, we'd have to create a driveway to get there, backup area to get out of there. So, we'd really start turning the site into a parking lot to get in there and to get out of there. So, it's trying to find that balance between, getting the parking there and trying to keep the beauty of the site, the amenities that they need and things such as that. So, I can't speak to, the number of, the history of the occupants in the front building, but my understanding is that is not normal for them to have 8 to 10 people in that building for that front B&B.
Have you driven by there on a weekend occasionally?
No, as I said, I don't have any history to tell you that.
If they have 4 bedrooms, they can have at least 8 people.
That's true. That's true. There we go. So it meets the parking requirements, as we do with any project. So we've met the requirements of 1 per unit, which is what we're showing.
But you're also asking for additional short-term rental on the bottom floor.
I'm sorry?
You're asking for permission to do the short-term rental on the bottom floor in the historic overlay. Is that a correct observation? That's why you have a cup instead of a carte blanche. You're approved to do this?
Yes, that's why this is not a by right, because this is the historic shopping district. Looking at the site, if the removal and parking isn't available, the only option is a reduction in density or units to alleviate some of that. That can add additional parking areas while reducing the overall total requirement for the parking count itself.
Parking has become such a big issue with these STRs that I agree with you, Mayor. This is my concern about this development, and I think if you can't meet necessary parking levels, then you have to reduce the number of units you have.
One of the comments that I had.
Sir, you don't have the opportunity right now. I appreciate you standing up, though. No, we're not going to have you arrested. It's okay.
Give him a chance, though, and you can turn, please.
I might not. Okay, thank you.
At any rate, you could remove one of those new structures, the one straight ahead from the parking spaces, and have plenty of places to park. That would be my suggestion.
Well, I'd like to send this back to P&Z and let them rehash this.
Do we have the time frame to send it back to P&Z and meet the requirements of state law?
The council's going to have to take some action within 40 days of tonight. So you can't just toss it back. You either have to vote it down as presented, or you can approve it with conditions, or you can approve it as presented. But those are really your 3 options. If you wanted to go back to P&Z, you would have to deny the application, and then the applicant would have the opportunity to reapply if they wanted to do so.
I would move that we deny the application tonight, and the applicant can go back if they choose to do so.
Okay, I have a motion by Kathy. Do I hear a second on the motion to deny this?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Jerry. Is that motion adequate? Okay, good.
When is the next P&Z meeting? Would this get on the next P&Z?
No, that legal notice went out this morning to the newspaper.
Okay, so let's talk about our time frame. So when's the next meeting for P&Z?
That will be October. So the next scheduled P&Z meeting is September 8th. Legal notice for printing, we missed that, but it could go back October 6th would be the earliest.
I thought you could get it in by Tuesday and still be printed.
I was told my deadline is, the latest, technically they like them on Friday. The latest they've told me is Monday. I could call in the morning and see if they'd be willing to.
But I think first of all, the applicant has to decide if they want to reapply. If this motion is passed tonight, they may not. It may take them a while to redesign this, and they may or may not reapply.
Let me clarify, because the 40 days is the council's timeline to take action on this item. From today, you've got 40 days. Like if you didn't take action tonight, you want to address it at a future meeting, you've got 40 days to do so. But once you make your decision, if it's denial, for example, then the applicant they're not under any time duress at that point. They're free to act as they feel is appropriate to move this through P&Z again if they wanted to do so.
Jason, so under our current ordinances, as presented, it meets our ordinance now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If this was in a by right area. So I think ultimately that's the difference here.
Okay, because that's the issue. It's not by right. It's because it's a cup.
Okay.
It's special.
So Randy, I guess in looking at the drawing, where I guess it's existing shed and existing porch on the drawing, is there enough room there that if it went away, you could put another space in there?
I suppose we could add a space there. I guess my question is, how many spaces, I mean, we're here for approval of a conditional use permit.
Right.
And we don't
Okay.
think you have enough spaces for this particular layout.
Okay, so I guess my question is then what is the number that we're to achieve? We've met the city of Fredericksburg parking requirements.
Not under a cup. It's a different.
So what, if I'm to go back to the drawing board, and I'll be very happy to work with staff. They're great to work with, but my question is, what is the number?
So Jason, under the cup, is the 5 parking spaces all that they're required to have?
Under the base zoning, yes, 5 parking spaces. So the way the short-term rental ordinance is written is it is 1 space per unit. So regardless of bedroom. So the house in the front is if we just keep that alone, that is a standalone project. That is a 2-unit property. So they would only be required 2 spaces, even though there are 4 bedrooms on the property, and that could sleep 8 to 10 people.
So that's the issue?
Yes. I mean, ultimately, from a staff perspective, and I think council and some of the STR owners through our discussions over the last several months, have all identified as our parking kind of being out of whack with the ordinance itself. So that's one of the issues staff has with the STR ordinance, is the parking requirements themselves.
So when we are looking at revising the STR ordinance, that will be one of the focal points, I'm sure, that we will want to look at. So the question here is, we haven't looked at that yet, so.
They're not coming in under the zoning ordinances.
No, but if you're asking what staff would recommend on the total parking, based on the layout, these are for the 3, there are some 1-bedroom units. We don't really see a lot of big parties, generally couples. What we see from experience is they generally do come together. It's not 2 people meeting, but although that is an option, we would recommend a minimum of 1 per bedroom, or maybe 75% of the occupancy, one of those. So at this rate, we'd be looking at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms. The staff would probably be looking at something like 7 parking spaces at a minimum start. If we wanted to go occupancy, we could calculate that load and say 75%. But ultimately, they may be meeting the minimum codes, but when we look at this, this may just be an example of overdevelopment of a site. Is it the parking is adequate if we lost 1 unit? Is it adequate if we kept them and just increased? Ultimately, I think council has the ability to go either route on this one.
But under our current ordinance, which we have to, that's what developers, this is what they have today.
Those are the guidelines.
Those are the guidelines for them to design.
They are the guidelines, and to speak to that, I would say those are the minimum. There's nothing that prohibits an applicant to provide more than the minimum. So if you look at any other development in town, we may say, hey, you only have to have 9 spaces at a restaurant. That owner may choose to have 20 because they want to provide adequate parking and all of that. So we do look at, yes, he is meeting the minimum requirements of a straight zoning request.
Right. The other question I have is, can a handicapped parking space be counted as a parking space?
Yes.
They're included because when you have multiple units on the site, you have to provide one of your rental units has to be ADA compliant because it's not a home that's being converted as a short-term rental. There's some allowances there where you don't have to provide ADA. But because this site, in all intents and purposes, function as a hotel, we can call it a short-term rental. We can call it a B&B. I mean, this is multiple units on a site that rent to different guests in different rooms. So they are required to have a handicap. So if there is a handicapped person staying on the site, that space is reserved for them. Legally, if there are no handicapped folks staying at the site, I don't think that they could use that as a parking. This is, they're subject to the same ADA standards, so if someone parked there without a tag, I mean, theoretically, they could be.
So theoretically, it should be 5 plus a handicap.
Yes, and that's something staff is also looking at. This issue has come up multiple times. And
But currently, the standards allow us to count handicapped spaces in our parking count. They always have.
Okay.
So the question then is, you have a fully booked complex over the weekend and no one that is booked into that complex is handicapped. Can that handicapped space be used by someone who does not have a blue tag?
I would say the answer is yes, it can be. Now, whether they get a ticket or enforced on that, that's another question. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious or anything like that, because I think it would be very rare that someone that is handicapped would be looking for a handicapped parking space behind a B&B that they're not staying at.
No, I definitely understood. Right. Yes, sir.
I just want to remind the council, this is a conditional use permit, and you can set whatever conditions you feel are reasonable as part of your approval process. So you have a lot of discretionary authority on conditional use permits.
And again, I guess my question is, if you deny it based on the requirements or city requirements, then what are the new standards that we're designed to?
Well,
That's why we have that gentleman right there. I think the magic number I heard was 7.
Yes, that would be one.
And I'm not going to say that is the number.
Per bedroom at least. And that's assuming, staff, I have not reviewed this inside that cabin. I can't say if each of those 2 bedrooms have 2 beds or if it's
but that's not
2 bunk beds or, but ultimately, we are looking at the kind of the typical, what we see is 1 space per bedroom at a minimum for
How many
every
CUPs do we have in place that are like this, that have the minimum requirement?
Ooh, that's a good question, sir. I do not have an answer to that. I can tell you, we've only done a few CUPs since I've been here in 6 months. I think most of those had additional parking, so this has never really come up.
The reason I ask is, I don't like this because there's never going to be 5 cars here. There's going to be 8 or 10 or whatever. Nobody carpools hardly anymore, unless you're married, and sometimes maybe you don't do then either. So my concern is that the parking's going to spill over into the neighborhood and block driveways, all kinds of stories. We've got that all over town. I don't like it. That's why I'm pushing for a new ordinance or some revisions to our current ordinance. But this is what we've got in place right now. So I don't know. I'm torn on it. I'd love to see more parking. You've designed to what's in the ordinance currently. but I don't like it. So,
Well, then we need to change the ordinance.
well,
We have a motion on the floor.
Oh, I know.
Well, and again, this is a special, unique situation, and I think Ken hit it on the, Ken, could you repeat that one more time?
I would move that we deny the application.
Right, that was the motion, it was seconded by Jerry, so we have a motion on the, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
aye.
Okay, motion carries 3-2 with Tom and Jerry voting, Tom and Bobby voting nay. And Kathy, Charlie, and Jerry voting yay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on then to item 8A. Thank you. Consider the approval of an order of a special election for November the 2nd, 2021 for the purpose of proposed measure related to the town pool, and I'm going to correct that to the Tony Canuck town pool splash pad. First two readings, the city council may waive the second reading. I, discussion of the town pool splash pad, information meetings and citizen input have DeAndrea Schmidt and also Daniel Jones to address this. Who wants to go first? Oh, there you are.
I'll go
Andrea.
first, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Andrea Schmidt, Parks Department. Tonight, I'm bringing you back some information that we've gathered on these options that we presented a while back on the splash pad at Town Pool. So just as a reminder, the Morning Rotary Club approached the city about fully funding construction of a splash pad in the city, and we decided Coach Tony Canuck Town Pool would be the best location. So we've come up with three options. We gave a presentation to council in July, and then we also had two public forums, one in August and one in July. The three options we presented was to keep Town Pool as it is with no changes, to keep Town Pool and then add the splash pad in the green space behind the pool, or to convert Town Pool into a splash pad. For the two forums, we had about 28 members of the public attend those. In addition, I received some emails from about 10 more people and then spoke to about 12 people either over the phone or in person. So that represents about 50 people here in the community, some residents of Fredericksburg and some from outside. Of these 50 people, most preferred option 2 to add the splash pad in the green space. There were a few that wanted option 3, and there were a few that had come up with different options on their own. I do note this represents a small portion of city residents, but they were very passionate about wanting to keep the pool. If an election is held, there would be a cost to the city of about $15,000, which does not include all the staff time for the presentations and things that would go into that. Based on the turnout for the public forum, my feeling is that we would probably have a low turnout for the election if it was held, and that we might have a lot of people that are very passionate about the pool, the same ones that turned out for the public forums. I was told that Town Pool has a lot of history, and that prior to the general obligation bond election in 2012, that there was some controversy about it moving forward, and I would hate to see something like this that should be positive turn into something negative in the community and a dividing point. If the election is held, then the decision would not be made until early November, so it would be, iffy whether or not we would open for next summer. But it could be possible. We did include funds in the budget for both Town Pool to stay open and a separate splash pad. We did have one suggestion from a member of the public to make the entry to Town Pool free so that there would be easy movement back and forth between Park Pool and, between the splash pad and Town Pool. And at first I was a little hesitant about even considering it, but the more I thought about it and we looked into the savings, we would not need to have a cashier. Town Pool only brings in about $5,000 on a good year. We would save about $3,300 on not having a cashier, so it's only about a $1,700 difference. In addition, we might be able to find some ways to bring in some revenue with private pool parties at the splash pad that could help make up some of that money. So for this reason, I was the one that originally brought up converting Town Pool, but just based on my discussions with people, I would recommend going ahead and moving forward with option 2 so we can try to get this splash pad built as soon as possible. We will probably continue to struggle with staff, but we'll do the best we can to keep it staffed and open as much as possible if that's the direction the council chooses to go.
And the splash pad would be constructed in the grass area?
Yes, with option 2, that's correct. So Town Pool would remain as it is, and then we'd add the splash pad in the back.
To the end. down at the very bottom.
Yes.
And it'd all be fenced.
Correct. So that's
Okay.
originally, the Rotary Club, the original plan had included some limestone blocks, but going back and considering it, we want to go back and add fencing around the entire thing. Now, if Town Pool does remain, we're going to have some gates up because there are going to be times, a lot of times, that Town Pool is closed and the splash pad is open. So we're going to have gates that we can close and lock, but people can still have access to the splash pad and to the restrooms.
Okay.
Well, let's look at taking the fence out and maybe closing that road down again. That would open up some area too down there.
Proposal, we may have to do that in the future.
Yeah, it could be a future item of discussion if it becomes congested and we need more parking or something like that.
Were you able to find out whether the option number 2 size of the splash pad is typical of a city?
It's pretty standard. It's actually bigger than some and a little bit smaller than others. Craftsman is putting together that information, but they didn't have all the details ready for tonight. But from just doing my own research, it's fairly standard. The converting Town Pool would be have a lot more features, but the current one we have is going to be a very nice splash pad.
And you did come up with the occupancy for the pool?
Correct. So the pool's occupancy is 99 people. This one would be, should check so I don't misspeak. There you go. So capacity, it was 98 for the pool and 128 additional ones for the splash pad.
Okay.
So you're looking at about 225 for both together.
And Rotary is fine with this option?
Yes, they're fine with whatever direction council chooses to go, whether it's option 1, 2, or 3.
Okay.
Andrew, if you take away the green area, being the grandpa, watching the little ones, is there going to be some kind of shade for the parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles and older folks to sit on?
So on the design, there's the L shape. The green space is an L shape. So the part that runs parallel to Schubert Street, that's going to be mainly the splash pad area. The other part that runs, down the side of the pool, that's going to be some new shade structures that'll be added in there.
Okay.
So there will be shade structures, and we can add picnic tables under those. And like I had discussed, that may be an option in the future. When Town Pool has staff, then maybe we do private splash pad parties out there. Just maybe when Town Pool's open, since we already have staff there and we don't have to bring in extra staff.
Andrew, at the public forums, you had a handout that you gave out that is not part of our council, that was not included in the council packet, and it had some cost features on there. Would you share with the public the anticipated costs of options 1, 2, and 3?
Sure. So option 1 is about $85,000 in annual operating costs. Option 2 would be $125,000, and option 3 is $40,000.
Okay.
How much on 3?
So 3 is 40. If we just have a splash pad and convert the pool, it would be about 40,000. If we add, and just Town Pool itself is 85, so add those numbers and you're looking at 125 with option 2, with almost no revenue.
Okay. Did the Parks Department turn a profit last year?
No, sir.
Okay. So the landfill, you're not a landfill, and you're not the electric department.
Absolutely not. The RV park made a profit.
The
That's it.
the RV park is the cash cow of the Parks Department.
Absolutely.
Okay. My point, and the golf course now. Okay. My point in this is that we, as cities, as communities, we make decisions on spending our money, our taxpayer money. Everybody sitting up here is a taxpayer also, on things that make us a better community, and I firmly believe that parks is part of that. It makes our community better. So my position is, I've been doing this for quite a while. The first pool bond was under my watch as mayor, and the citizens voted for to increase their taxes to the tune of, for a $3.2 million bond. I believe that the citizens of Fredericksburg think that parks are a good idea. I believe that they would approve of either keeping a pool or adding a splash pad or even maybe a bigger splash pad. My opinion is that the citizens of Fredericksburg need to make this decision, not the five of us. So I would recommend to my fellow council members that we call an election in November and let the citizens that would still, according to your data, you said that you needed to let the what's the company?
Craftsman.
You need to let Craftsman know by November 1st. Election day is November 2nd. So we would probably have a tally of the vote by sometime in the late evening on November 2nd, which I think it's only fair that, in my opinion, that if they voted on the first one, they need to vote on the second one.
I don't disagree with that, but what I'm thinking about is you walk in the pool now and you see chain link fences. There's one all around the kiddie pool. Now there's going to be another chain link fence and some gates. It's just, and there won't be any green area. It's not attractive, very attractive the way it is now. I can imagine what it's going to be like if there's more concrete and hard surfaces of various kinds. So that's one concern I have, that people will vote for something that's going to be unattractive. And I'm still concerned about the size of the splash pad because the grassy area isn't that big. If you're going to have 3 features, how soon are the kids going to get bored with it and not want to go back? When we had those meetings, and I attended both of them, there were 2 parents, one each time, that I could determine. One was a woman with 2 children with her. While I was there, she never said, what she preferred. The other one was a man who was complaining about his son being a lifeguard and being underpaid. So we really didn't get anything from the group that will mainly be using this, parents of smaller children, under age 14 children. I just don't know whether the public's going to have enough information or have been able to think about it enough or care about it. And I guess that'll come out in a referendum one way or the other. And at those forums, 2 that we had, I don't like to use the word old people, but basically these were older than middle-aged people or middle-aged who either didn't want the pool or did want a pool because they had nostalgia about it. So, this is an important decision because it changes the character of Town Pool somewhat. Also, in a splash pad, you don't have to have parental supervision. Now, I know you told me at parks you don't have to have parental supervision, but the splash pad, you see kids running in, slipping and falling and cracking open their heads. If there's no adult there, it, as you said, lies there, until somebody figures out that something's wrong. It's a little concerning to me in that regard. There will be very little place for parents or grandparents to sit and watch if they did decide to come. Will there be any place for them to sit, any chairs or any?
There'll be about 2,500 square feet for the splash pad on option 2, or 4,500 square feet for option 3.
But will there be a place for parents to sit and watch?
That's the shaded, those will be the shaded. There'll be some shade in some areas you can set up a lawn chair or something like that. But there is a difference of, 2,000 square feet between option 2 and 3.
Right.
As to how much space there'll be.
Okay, so those are just my thoughts and comments.
And I will agree that the fencing is ugly. It's just become an unnecessary evil to protect some of our investments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor, I think tonight, the council just needs to either vote on one of the options or vote to take this to the voters in a special election. The election would have to be called tonight in order to meet the timeframe for a November election, so I think a motion would be appropriate.
Daniel, do you want to address, if we go that route, what the council needs to know in regards, if we go the route of calling an election?
Well, tonight's the last night for the council to make that decision, so as part of, if the council elects to submit this to the voters, as part of your motion tonight, you need to identify the language that you want to be included on the ballot. There's a sample included in your packet. That language is really primarily there for a placeholder. So once you get through the threshold issue of whether you want to submit it to the voters or not, then you've got to provide some guidance on how you want that ballot measure to be worded. If you want to be, pick one of the three options, or if you want it to be, right now it's essentially just, do you want to remove town pool and replace it with a splash pad? It's sort of a single question that's proposed currently. So just giving you a heads up that if you decide that you want to go to a vote, then you got the next step tonight. You just have to decide what you want that to read.
So could we have a vote on whether to go to an election and then come back into discussion and discuss the language that would go on the ballot? Or does it have to all be at in the same motion?
Yeah, I think you could do it in two separate motions. Obviously, you would have to resolve the second. If you vote affirmatively on the first and move on to deciding what language you're going to use, you're going to have to resolve that tonight. So ultimately, you'd have to move through both of those issues, but I think you could do it separately.
Two separate motions.
What motion do we have on the floor?
None.
None?
We had what you wanted or you liked, but I didn't hear a motion.
Oh, well, no, I thought that what...
I want to make one more comment. There's potential for a splash pad at Grand Central. At least that's in the paper, I believe.
Yeah, I read the article in the paper, and it's something in the preliminary plans, but I don't have any details on what it's going to include, how big it's going to be, if it's going to be open to the public. I don't have any.
Where's Grand Central? Did you say Grand Central?
Yeah, where the Super S was.
Super S.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Just for council's knowledge on that, we did receive a call from the developer and asked if they could put a splash pad on that site. And if they did, would they have to go through any type of special approvals? Would it modify their site plan? Our conversation with them basically was it really depended on what they were going to do. If it was a for-profit, they were going to charge admission, that they would have to park that accordingly. They told us that it was purely an amenity to those that are visiting, but that they would not be charging any revenue. So if they're not charging revenue, then there's no additional parking. They merely just have to update their site plan and go back to P&Z for approval. Now, long-term, that was kind of the gist of our conversation. So we don't know, how far they're going to moving along with that project, or if that goes away during final design. So at this point, staff considers that kind of speculation.
My feeling is if we agree to add the splash pad to the current town pool, I don't think we need to go to an election. The voters already voted for the pool, and this would be just adding the splash pad, just like the Rotary added the basketball, the skate park, the batting cages, and I don't see the need to go to a vote on that. Now, for the other two options, yes, I would say let's vote on it.
Mayor, if you are willing for a motion, I'll make a motion that the city call an election for November of 2021 for the voters to decide on whether to add a splash pad to the Tony Canop Town Pool, or to convert the entire Tony Canop Town Pool to a splash pad.
Or to leave it as it is. Or to leave it as it is. just option one.
Are you saying not put a splash pad there, Kevin?
I'm not including that in my motion.
Can you repeat that again?
That we call an election for November 2021 to let the voters of Fredericksburg decide whether to add a splash pad to the existing Tony Kanawha town pool or to convert the existing Tony Kanawha town pool into a splash pad. And we can work on the language.
The wellness center, is there a second?
We need to see if there's a second.
It dies, there's no...
I'll second it.
Well, I was going to
Because I'd like to have some further discussion.
if you would amend your motion to include the option of not doing anything, because the other two might be, if they only had those two options, it might be misleading. That we're going to do one or the other, and maybe some people don't want to do anything. So I guess they would vote no. I don't know.
Now you can discuss. Okay, to the wellness center, I think if you get the splash pad, I think you'll have a pool there that the wellness center and these other things, I mean, there can even be some parties there or something like that in the evenings, and I think we need to keep the pool. I agree with Bobby. I think, this horse is already kicked down the road and we just need to, almost all the people that I've kind of talked to said they want to keep option 2, keep the pool and the splash pad. And I think we can develop it, and it could be a nice little addition there. Yeah, I think the people would really enjoy it.
So Jerry, what you're saying then, whether this motion passes or not, if I'm understanding, is that we don't need to go to the people if we decide to go with option 2.
No, I think we're giving the people the option between option 2, which is keep the pool and add a splash pad, or option 3, which is convert the pool to a large splash pad. So the motion before the council right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my motion is that we should take it to the voters. Okay? So we can vote on that motion. If that motion goes down in defeat, then there's other options that you can do, but I firmly believe that the voters of the city of Fredericksburg need to express what they want done to town pool.
I think your motion is confusing. That if those are the only two things they can vote on, it's going to be confusing to them when they walk up to the poll and see that.
Okay.
We don't have a second.
Yeah, we do. I did. Yeah, I did, because I like to get it out there.
Okay.
Kick the horse till we kick it to death. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion by Tom and a second by Charlie. And I would agree with you, Kathy. I think the motion is confusing, but all those in favor of the motion, by aye?
Aye.
We have one in favor. All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion failed. Tom voted for, the rest of the council voted nay. Motion failed. Tom, I wouldn't, I think if you want to...
People's money.
I think I agree with Kathy. If you want to introduce a new motion that includes leave the pool as it is, convert it to a complete splash pad, or do option 2, which is keep the pool and develop the splash pad.
So moved.
In the...
Thank you. I'll make that motion that the mayor just made.
I can't make a motion.
I know, but I just made the motion. I'm agreeing with your, okay, and here, okay.
Would you repeat it then?
I will repeat. I will make a motion that we take to the voters in November of 2021, have them have an election to decide whether town pool shall be one, keep town pool as it is with no splash pad. 2, to add a splash pad to the existing town pool, or 3, to convert town pool into a larger splash pad.
I'll second that motion. Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Tom, seconded by me. Charlie, any further discussion?
No, I'm sticking with what I said a while ago.
You'll have a chance to vote in a minute.
I will.
Bobby?
I don't know. I still feel fairly strongly that we don't need to go to the voters if we're adding a splash pad. The reason I say that again is the people have already spoken about about the pool. We're just adding a splash pad, just like we agreed for the Rotary to add the basketball facility, to add the skate park. They're just adding another facility to an existing park. I don't think we need to go to the voters and spend $15,000.
Very good. Kathy, any further comments? None?
No.
Okay. We have a motion. We'll go to a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
What did you say?
There was 2 ayes. I wanted to be sure I heard 2 ayes. Tom,
Oh, you too?
yeah. All those against?
Aye.
Okay, motion fails 3-2. Voting for, Tom and Charlie. Voting against, Jerry, Bobby, and Kathy. Okay.
Daniel, if looking at the agenda, it states that we're just deciding whether this goes to a vote in November. We can't actually decide the outcome. I mean, if we can't say, okay, we want option two, and we can't take a vote on it tonight without going to a vote. Well, no, but what I'm saying is, do we just...
Can we do it tonight?
Can we do that? Can we decide tonight that we want option two without calling vote?
What does it say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Daniel, you were going to say something. Please say it.
I don't know if the agenda item's written with that intent. I think our focus was more on the demand or the requirement to have the decision for the election has to be made tonight. And so,
Okay.
if there's not a motion to submit this to the voters in November, you're still free to do whatever you want next week, or you can submit it again in the following May. I mean, it leaves your options open, but I don't. The argument could be made that under item 8A1, I mean, there's. I'm not real comfortable with the council taking that action tonight. I guess I'll put it that way.
My concern is if we don't, we almost need to decide what we as a body wants to do, because we'll miss our window to call an election if we all don't agree on option two.
Except Andrea said that the window to make the decision is November 1st. She, at the public hearings, she said that the city needed to make the decision on the splash pad no later than November 1st.
I understand, but if we decide to pass on calling the election to have discussion on which option we want to go with as a city council, then we miss the opportunity to have the election.
In November.
In November.
Right, well, I thought that I thought we've made that decision.
You've already made that decision.
You just made that decision.
Yeah, but Tom, I think what he's saying is, if you don't come to an agreement at the next meeting, or you don't come to an agreement period, we lose the opportunity to put a splash pad there. That's what he's saying.
Why? Why is that? Because...
I mean, if the council doesn't agree 3-2 on one of the options, is what he's saying.
Okay.
At some point.
And particularly if we don't agree on option two, then we lose the opportunity to go to
In November, but we could come back in May, and this would be delayed until the summer of 2023.
Well, my understanding is that the council just voted 3-2 to not bring this issue to the voters at all.
Right.
Okay, so it seems to me that the council has, they have 2 meetings in September and 2 meetings in October to decide on whether they want option 2, which is to add a splash pad, or option 3, which is to convert the town pool into a splash pad. Right?
That's right.
And according to the...
Option 1, not do anything.
Yeah, and that, or option one, not do anything. So,
all I'm saying is, I'm for option 2. I don't think we need to go to a vote.
well, we're not going to vote.
Let me finish, please. I don't know if I have agreement with the rest of the council, so if I get voted down that we don't want to do that option, we've missed our opportunity to have a vote if we don't decide that tonight. And that's why we were asking Daniel, can we decide which option the council would like to see happen without going to a vote? I'm not necessarily saying, I know that might be confusing, but I don't necessarily think that I'm for option 1 or for option 3. All I'm saying is, if we all decide option 2 is the route, I don't think we need to go to the voters.
Hey, maybe to help you a little bit. I think we can redo the motion on whether we go to referendum or not, but to give you my opinion on this, at this point, I don't have enough information, or I'm not satisfied enough to go with option 2 or 3. So I would prefer that we do, if we're going to have to decide tonight, we can take it to the voters, but I would say, just to let you know, that's where I would be with option 1. So if there's anybody else who wouldn't go with Bobby?
Mayor, according to the agenda, it says discussion on town pool splash pad information meetings and citizen input. So it doesn't say that we are deciding on an option for town pool splash pads.
That's why I asked Daniel if we could decide that tonight.
Well,
His answer was, I don't feel comfortable, which means no.
which means that we've had the first 2 readings on this issue, and we can bring this whole issue back at the next council meeting and make a decision after people get more information on option 2 or option 3, and they can make a decision, do I like 2, do I like 3, or do I like 1, keeping it the way it is? Because I'll repeat again, from what I heard from the council tonight, the option to take it to the voters was determined to not be an option.
Right.
Okay? So the council tonight said, this is not going to the voters. We will make a decision on either keeping the pool the way it is, adding a splash pad to the pool, or converting the pool to a splash pad.
No, what I heard was taking option 2 or 3 to the voters.
Nope.
The first motion.
That's correct.
That died 1 to 4.
Then I heard take option 1, 2, or 3 to the voters.
1, 2, yes, to make a vote, 1, 2, or 3.
And that died.
Right.
That's correct again.
So the other option is take it, well, we could bring that up again, though, after discussion.
You know what? The council could change his mind in a heartbeat by next couple of meetings, and I see where we're going on this. Yes, we could decide it with another motion at another meeting to take it, if I'm just going to pick number 2. Everybody says, hey, we want to do number 2, but somebody says, hey, let's take that to the voters. Then we have an option to say, hey, let's take it to the voters and we'll do it in May. If we say, no, we're not going to do that, then it's council's idea to say, okay, we'll wave the magic wand and we're going to approve that project. Is that what I'm hearing? I think so. I think we kicked that so far down the road, we're getting confused what we're saying.
Well, okay, so did we agree tonight we're not having a vote?
That's correct.
Okay, so then the next thing is that the council will decide which of the options, either 1, 2, or 3, will happen to town pool.
That's correct again.
Okay. Right. And so the question is whether we will not decide on option 1, 2, or 3 tonight, because we are discussing only and not voting on those options.
That's correct. No, going to a vote.
No going to a vote on either option 1, 2, or 3. Right. Because the only vote on tonight's agenda was a consideration of a special election, and we turned that down.
That's correct.
Okay.
For November.
For November.
Doesn't mean we couldn't do it in May.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
I think I got it.
I just wanted to add that the way that the agenda is noticed, there can be discussion till the end of time, as long as you want to take. You just can't take action on it tonight. So if you want to discuss and
I think
try
we've discussed it
try
all
to
we want.
clarify your.
I think we're going to move on.
Well, 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago.
I wanted to, but I wanted you guys to hash it out.
Just one other thing before you get off. If anybody, again, to put an item on on next agenda requires either the mayor to put the item on or 2 council members.
That's
So
correct.
if 2 council members want to put an order on the next agenda to have a May election, you need to let us know that you want that on the agenda. At this point, I think we're assuming that all you want on the agenda is to approve options 1, 2, or 3 for the select session.
That's not what I want on the agenda. I want to give us more time to learn more about it and the staff to learn
Okay, so
more.
you don't want anything on the next agenda?
No.
Okay.
That's just me, though. I mean,
The council will have to let us know what you want on the next agenda.
Do what? I'd say put it on.
You got 2 here.
Well, we're discussing something that's not properly appropriate. Okay. You'll need direction from us later on.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll work.
Thank you.
Amen.
Okay, I believe now we might be on item
sorry.
8E. Is that a fair observation?
Where are we?
8E?
8D. Annex.
Oh, I'm sorry, dadgummit, I was gonna kick Mark further back. Okay.
I got you, Mark.
Okay. 8D, consider an approval of an extension agreement related to request by Mark Corbett for a voluntary Nexon, thank you, for property located at 651 Post Oak Road. Go ahead. Jason, you want to address this, or we want to let Mark speak first?
I can do it. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
Not quite as in-depth as our last conversation. Really, we're looking at about 6 acres on Post Oak Road. This area was actually part of our proposed annexation for 6A and 6B. We've actually started that process again. We've reached out to landowners, sent letters, sent notice to the newspaper. So that will tee up probably about the same time that this comes back. The applicant didn't want to wait through the annexation process before moving forward. They'd like to get started, so they are proposing coming into the city. We're going to be requesting R1A zoning, correct on that one. And then that will allow them to do a single-family residential development there. So staff recommends approval of the requested annexation agreement.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, none. I really like the R1A concept. Hopefully you'll be able to bring them at some kind of, do you have any idea what kind of market price you might be looking at, Mark?
Well, there's a little confusion. I'm the applicant's representative. The actual applicant is Jacob Grant with 10-8 Properties, and he's the same developer of Oaks and Windcrest Phase 5, and has been building those homes in there, and they're selling as fast as he can build them.
Right.
And so I think he's still working on floor plans. These are smaller lots. These are a little bit narrower,
right.
Maybe 95 feet deep, the way the geometry works. But we have submitted a preliminary plat to the city staff, and so I think we can fit 39 or 40 lots in there, and it'll all have a loop street, very good access, good utilities. It's a great fit.
Is Central Texas an electric supplier?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
And Jacob's here if you have any specific questions.
No?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Bobby and a second by Kathy. Let the record reflect that Tom is not present for the vote. Should we wait or should we go?
Oh, he'll be back in a minute. Hey, Jason, these roads, do they all comply with the fire safety and everything else? And
on their proposed development?
Yeah, the development.
We're still going through review process, so if they don't, they will. I mean,
They're going to be 40 feet street, just a city standard street, and it's a horseshoe. It comes off of Post Oak and loops around and comes back to Post Oak. There'll be no dead ends, and so it's pretty cut and dry.
No, we didn't have any issues with the preliminary plan. I think there's some utility and some easement language there for drainage that needs to be, fine-tuned, but other than that, no major concerns on the project.
time we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. Do you have any questions or concerns? On 8D 6578.
Okay, you paying park fees?
Those are paid at final plat.
Okay, but no waiver of park fees?
No, there's no waiver proposed in this annexation agreement.
We have an annexation agreement, and I think it's pretty straightforward if you read through it.
Okay. Every word. Okay. I've no.
Call for the question.
Okay, ready? Yep. Okay, no further questions. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go to 80. Girl, Laura, you finally get to say something. Consider the announcements related to the proposal fiscal year 2022 budget. 1I, filing the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget with city secretary. I, public hearing to receive comments on the proposed public fiscal year 2020 at 6 p.m. on Monday, August the 23rd, 2021 at the Law Enforcement Center located at 1601 East Main, Fredericksburg, Texas, 78624. Laura, it's all yours. And do speak close to the microphone, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In accordance with Section 102.005 of the Local Government Code, the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022 will be filed with the City Secretary this Thursday, August the 19th, which is prior to the required 30th day before the date the City Council adopts the tax levy for the fiscal year. The proposed budget will be available for inspection by any person and will also be posted on the city website. Also, in accordance with Section 102.006 of the Local Government Code, a public hearing on the proposed budget will be held Monday, August the 23rd at 6 p.m. here in the Law Enforcement Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Concerns? Okay, we don't need to make a motion on this, it was just an announcement. Okay, good. Good, we're moving on to number 9, City Manager Report, budget update.
Hey, Laura's report is a good segue into the next item, budget update. Our budget is proceeding along. This week, the City Council will be getting a copy of our revised budget, which includes all the changes we've made over the last 6 weeks or so. And as Laura mentioned, the next meeting is coming up Monday, this coming Monday. In addition to the public hearing on the budget, there will also be a vote on the tax rate. This will be the maximum tax rate that the City Council wants to consider for next year. And so that is a rate that cannot be exceeded as you continue through the budget meetings over the next month or so. We will also, if the council approves an increase over the no new revenue tax rate, there's a requirement for one public hearing, and that is according to your calendar scheduled on September 8th, which is a Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, and we'll remind you of this next Monday when you take your vote. But that meeting will be moved to the fire training room because that's the night of a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in this room. So anyway, these are the remaining meetings that are left to discuss the budget. The budget is scheduled to be adopted on September 20th. I also wanted to mention at the public hearing next Monday night, you're going to get a new request. So I wanted to kind of let you know about this. Today I received a call from Amanda Stevens from the hospital. And she had indicated that the hospital would like to consider requests to the council to appropriate some American Rescue Plan funds for hiring medical personnel from out of state to help them deal with the current overload that they have with COVID patients. So I had not seen the proposal. They're supposed to submit something in the next couple of days, and they're going to come to your public hearing. If you'll recall, we have over $600,000 in unallocated American Rescue Plan funds that are still there, and they're going to request some of that be allocated for the hospital, again, to help them with medical personnel. So just wanted to let you know, I don't have any other information on that, but the hospital will probably have some representatives at their meeting on Monday. So I think that's it on the budget update. Any questions on that, where we stand on the budget?
You said the budget will come out Friday?
The actual budget will be Wednesday or Thursday.
No, this week?
Huh? Usually give you time to review it prior to the hearing Monday night. Okay. Moving on, update on the short-term rental. Glad the council got to meet our new code enforcement officer this evening. He will be training with Ray for about 30 days. They were out and about today, and hopefully Mr. Ted Boyer will be ready to go in about 30 days. And again, him and Ray will have different shifts that they'll work, and we're excited to have the second code enforcement officer on board. This afternoon, city staff met for a review on the status of our ordinance amendments. Today we received the recommendation from our fire marshal for the amendment to the ordinance on fire pits. We're also working on ordinance amendments dealing with trash and noise and other amendments in our zoning, of course, our amendments to our zoning ordinance. Those we're hoping to get a draft ready prior to the Labor Day holiday to send that out to the council. And I sent the council an email today suggesting we have a work session on Monday, September 13th at 6 o'clock. And so I wanted to see if that would work for the council. I think I heard from all of you today.
Monday, what day?
September 13th.
September 13th, 6 o'clock.
At the University Center. University Center. Does that work for you, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's all I have to report on. Did I miss anything, Jason or Clinton or anything? Dan?
The civil adjudication process, we were going to bring that maybe first meeting in September for an initial look. That's the process that moves not just STRs, but other code violations as well into an civil process as opposed to the normal criminal misdemeanor process.
Okay. Mayor, the last item to report on this evening, one of our council members asked me to give an update on COVID situation locally, and this is not an agenda item, but Daniel had indicated since this is a thing that's continuing to change on a daily basis, I could give the council a brief update on what's happened since the agenda was posted several days ago. So the main change that has occurred from the city standpoint is over the last week, we've had 4 city employees test positive. These are employed, one in the Parks Department, one in EMS, one in the Water Department, and one in Stormwater Vegetation. In addition to that, we have 2 other employees that are being quarantined because one of their immediate relatives that lives with them tested positive, and that's an employee at City Hall and another EMS employee. So the reason I'm sharing this information with the council, again, this is new information I've just learned about today, and so this is an indication of where it's starting to affect city employees directly and could eventually affect city services. So we're very concerned about that. In addition, today got word that the Hill Country Memorial is planning a community-wide vaccination clinic in the next couple of weeks to be held at Marketplace. That is the day of the County Fair Parade. They're thinking that's a good day for people that will be out and about that want to come by Marketplace and get a vaccine. So it'll be a week from this Friday during the County Fair. I think the time for the vaccine clinic will be 9 to 1. Other than that, the report from the hospital today indicated there were 7 patients hospitalized at the Hill Country Memorial. The range over the last week has been from 7 patients to 12 patients. The average 7-day average is 10.5 patients, and the positivity rate's been running 24%. So I think that's all I had to report on this evening because, again, it's not on the agenda and I have to just basically report on what's changed the last couple of days.
So the positivity rate was what?
Positive rate as of today was 24%, according to the hospital.
But you don't know the number of the positive cases. 24% could be of 1,000 people tested or 100 people tested. Or
24% of the people that have been tested.
Right, what's how many people have been tested? Question I have. 24% could only be 2 people.
I'll just add one thing to that. The fire EMS does their own testing. In the last week, they tested 133 and 26 were positive for a 19.55% positive rate. So they're pretty close to the hospital. So that's all I have, Mayor, Council.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to agenda, for future agenda, items for future agenda.
Okay, so the next meeting will be on a Tuesday night because Monday, September 6th is a holiday, Labor Day. And so right now we have the Post Oak annexation first public hearing, right? We have a resolution regarding the pedestrian bridge on South Lano, the TxDOT project. I think I heard from 2 council members that they wanted to add on the next agenda the options for operation of town pool and the splash pad issue, to vote on that at the next meeting. We have Texas Rangers agreement to manage Fort Martin Scott. I think Daniel's working on that. Hopefully that'll be ready. And then Ernie has requested 2 items on the next agenda: the presentation on the CVB annual budget and appointment of 3 new CVB board members. I've also asked Justin Calhoun to give an update report on the emergency action plan. This will include what steps have been taken to address recommendations that were included in that plan following the winter storm. So Justin will give you a report on our accomplishments over the last several months on that plan. And so far, the September 20th meeting is light, but that is the meeting that the final tax rate is adopted along with the budget, FY 2022 budget. So that's what we have for the agenda for our September meeting so far. Are there any questions or additional items that the council would like to add to the agenda?
I'm just glad that the Labor Day is not on the 45 declared communist takeover goals.
Any other comments, council? If not, we'll go to council comments. Kathy, I'm gonna start on my left.
Okay, well, I have something to say today. For the last 2 meetings, at least, probably many, many more, we've gotten incorrect information from people making public comment. They refer to the CDC VAERS site. If you go to the VAERS site, unless you have a VAERS ID, it's pretty much impossible to get real information. What the CDC did when people got vaccines was they encouraged them to report any clinically significant health problem following vaccination to VAERS, whether or not they believe the vaccine was the cause. Reports, this is written on the VAERS website. Reports may include incomplete, inaccurate, coincidental, and unverified information. The number of reports alone cannot be interpreted or used to reach conclusions about the existence, severity, frequency, or rates of problems associated with vaccines. VAERS data are limited to vaccine adverse event reports received between 1990 and the most recent date for which data are available. VAERS data do not represent all known safety information for a vaccine and should be interpreted in the context of other scientific information. VAERS data available to the public include only the initial report data to VAERS. In other words, what people report to VAERS. Updated data, which contains data from medical records and corrections reported during follow-up, are used by the government for analysis. However, for numerous reasons, including data consistency, these amended data are not available to the public. So you can draw no conclusions from the data that you're able to access unless you have a VAERS ID. Or you can just report incorrect information, which we've been getting. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Tom?
No comments.
Jerry?
Me? Oh. Okay, well, the county had a lot going on. They had payroll claims, related expenses. They approved the journal of entries and budget amendments. They approved the departmental reports. They approved replats on 4 plats out at Boot Ranch. They approved submission of request for Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, grant funds and designation of county representative. They approved a plat on the Canyon subdivision, approved the restoration of the front porch in Willow City School, and they had representatives from the 4-H talk about their winnings and earnings that they did with 4-H, and purchased 4 computers. And then they rebuilt a boiler pump for the courthouse. Okay, the Market Square redevelopment, we met today and we kind of went over the fundraising called the playground renovation. They should most probably board the curbs today and are going to be able to get in and get the pad finished up and then pour the concrete mat. So I think we're still looking at about the middle of September to get the pad completely done. We talked about our monies received from individuals, business, and government. Cheryl and Bill Rothermel, the 25, these are ones that have committed, are 25,000, Carl Runslave, 35,000, Kathy Harrison Foundation, 25,000. We put in grants with Atmos Energy, LCRA, Gillespie County, Fisher and Weezer, and then the city of Fredericksburg. We're looking to have the city have money in the budget for us, the market plots already, and then we're also looking at the Meadows Foundation, Peterson Foundation, and the Calhoun Foundation. So we're still working on it, but it's getting closer and closer, and there was some other good news that came, but I don't think I can say it right now. Another thing is, okay, while we're talking on all this stuff, I looked up your Dr. Ben Edwards, and he is a naturopath in Post, Texas. And he believes in, I'm not saying that naturopath medicine is bad, it does have its place. But when it comes down to infectious diseases and vaccines and things like it, and epidemiologists, I looked up and the people who are Paul Offit on the FDA Vaccine Advisory Committee, Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, Rochelle Lewinsky, pioneered a national and global response to HIV, professor of medicine from Harvard, chief of the Division of Infectious Diseases, Dr. Mitchell Wolf, CDC chief medical officer, joined CDC Epidemic Intelligence Survey, University of Vermont, Dr. Michael Ledemarco, Director, Center of Surveillance, Epidemiology, and Laboratory Service, led the front in COVID. Dr. Leanne Nguyen, American Pediatric Committee. Dr. Deborah Hurry, Deputy Director of the CDC. Dr. Sally Goza, former Director, American Academy of Pediatrics. Dr. Jennifer Schiffer, Chief State of Texas epidemiologist, DSHS, and Dr. Anthony Fauci. And then I was just San Antonio, they had an article here with Dr. Hotez, Hotez, and he is one of the country's most visible scientists during the pandemic and has been a regular voice of the pandemic. He co-directs Children's Hospital Center and Vaccine Development and is Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine. Now, when I come down to listen to somebody and take somebody's advice, I'm going to take these specialists' advice. If if you want to go out, if you get COVID and you want to go out to Dr. Ben Edwards and post tickets between Schneider and Lubbock on Highway 84, I'm sure you can find him there. He'll help take care of you. All these doctors that I read off up here, they all say that the COVID and the vaccines are real. In order to be safe as possible, a vaccine and mask are needed. If one is exposed, should everybody be exposed? The vaccine helps produce protein and antibodies that attach to the cells to keep them from getting infected. They don't change your DNA. They don't put a chip in there that they can follow you home. In a study done by the CDA in Kentucky, it found unvaxxed residents infected were at a 2.34 times higher risk of being reinfected compared to those fully vaccinated. Hospitals are strained, nurses are strained. 95% of the COVID cases in the hospitals are unvaccinated. Now that we have the Delta variants, which is even more affecting, it's affecting more children. There's more children coming up with these viruses. And when it comes down to my grandson, I'm going to do everything I can to keep that guy from getting it. Here was one thing. Scott Apple, A-P-L-E-Y, Dickerson City Council. He was a state Republican executive on the state Republican executive committee and was an anti-vax. Anti-vax stated that mask mandates were akin to Nazism, a violation of HIPAA, and said vitamin D and zinc was all you need. We could ask him, but he died at the age of 45 from COVID. I don't know what to tell y'all. This COVID is real. You can believe what you want. Like I said, if you get it, I hope you go out to Dr. Ben Edwards out in Post, Texas, and he can take care of you, and y'all have fun. The hospital's had enough, I think. I think the nurses and the doctors have had enough. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Jared. Bobby?
Quick update on airport. As of today, New York airport fuel sales are up 43% over last year, and they estimate they'll sell 500,000 gallons of fuel this year, which is 500,000. They're one of the few airports in this area that has been able to get fuel. So
that's from the Bailey's flying in and out over there.
Okay, I'm gonna put.
Is that jet fuel?
That's all fuel.
I'm gonna put a lighter note on what we're discussing. A few weeks ago, most of the council members were there at the water wheel dedication or mock plots. Great event. I think one of the comments was made that wheel's the most balanced wheel they ever had up there. It turns beautifully. Something else I want to share with you, I did go to the Global Leadership Summit that was held at the FISD High School auditorium. Well worth the time. I want to thank Bobby Vitek, the Holy Ghost, for inviting me, and I want to also thank all the members of the Holy Ghost Church who were there. Were giving great hospitality and would give me valet service. But if you have a chance to sign up for that sometime in the future next year, it was well worth 2 days of my time to be there. Heard some real success stories. But I would think that the best fun I had this week was I was on a scavenger hunt by FISD Elementary School. Teachers and staff. Some came to my house, some met me at Mark Plots, and then I went to the primary school and had my picture taken with that group. And I've never seen energetic, happy, thrilled, excited staff and teachers in my entire life. And I'm telling you what, I told those gals, I said, man, I could be back in school. I would think you teachers would just tolerate me better. Anyway, that was exciting, and I would hope that all teachers in our county, in our state, and in our country could share their enthusiasm for being in the schoolroom again. Thank you. Anything else? With that, I'll entertain a motion to close this meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion by Bobby, second by Jared, Tommy. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.